Hey everybody, and welcome to Naughty Neighbours 53. First up today, we have Fence Get Agreements in Writing by Remarkable World 9396. This is YouTube, so we'll try to keep the cursing to a minimum. Fence fudgery? No? About a year into moving into my house, fresh out of college, one of my neighbours on my left, Tim, approached me about putting up a privacy fence on our shared property line. I'd been planning on doing so anyway. My neighbour on my right already installed one, and on the backside of my property there was an existing one. This is a non-HOA neighbourhood, so there's no rules other than city ordinance. Tim's property line spans about half my left-sided fence, since his plot is much less steep than mine. We reached an agreement that I be responsible for the other half of that side of my property line. And on our shared line, I dig holes, place posts, and help him pick up the fence panels, since he did not own a truck. He'd purchase and install the panels. Fence was to be on the shared property line about a foot into my yard. Went smooth as can be expected, other than Tim kept the top of the fence level on a graded slope. As a result, the fence was over 8 feet high where the grade was low, and left a 2-foot gap at the bottom. He didn't get fixed for 2 weeks, so used a tall decorative stone I later came to find out he didn't like, and this was strike one. About a year later, he approached and asked if it would be okay to replace the posts along the shared property line, since the ones he did for the rest of his privacy fence were a different style. Apparently his strike two. I told him he had 2 months to do so if he was going to, because my fiancée and her dog would be moving in. He agreed, but ultimately never did the work, so I figured this was a done deal. Boy, was I wrong. 3 years go by. Tim was my favorite neighbor. We never said a word to one another and acted like neither existed. My kind of neighbor. I was out of town for a couple of weeks visiting property I owned, while my now wife stayed home. After a week of being gone, late Saturday afternoon, I get a panicked call from my wife that Tim has taken down half of the fence in the shared property line. We now have proof he chose this time because he saw my truck was gone for over a week and didn't realize she was home. I have her call the police. It becomes a whole big issue. Explain to the police that the fence is on my property and show aerial surveys. Police say there is nothing they can do to stop him since it's over half down now by the time they get there. Bull. The panels are legally his. Not if they're on your property. And that his foot of trespass onto our yard isn't something they'd be willing to take him in for. It's a whole mess. His rationale to my wife was that I agreed he could replace the fence post, to which she reminds him that was 3 years ago and a 2-month time limit. He's shocked she knows that. He moves the fence 3 inches toward his property, not realizing he's still on mine. Rather than leaving his whole panels, he rehang the individual fence slats, but doesn't line up the previous nail holes, so there's hundreds of nails sticking out in my yard for us or the dog to get scratched. Biggest issue is he doesn't hang all the fence back up on the fence, so now there's a 20-foot gap. I get home as planned, and that same night have new fence posts dug and installed that line up with the moved fence, since it's still in my property. Next day, fence panels go up and all the nails sticking out of the fence slats and in my yard get hammered into his. The gap is closed and looks like one continuous fence again, crisis averted. Next day, the nails are all driven back in rather than removed. I repeat hammering them back so we can't get scratched. This continues on for a few days, back and forth, including having the police called again, and tell him to remove the nails or be liable for negligence and reckless assault if we get scratched. 2 weeks later, while we're out, he takes down the 40-foot stretch that had previously been moved. I go out to confront him while he's doing this, and now that I'm home, he has decided to carry a gun on him while working, unlike previous. Cops get called for a 3rd time, and like the first, don't do anything. His reasoning is I should have hung the panels on existing posts I had, rather than tying into his fence on my property. This time he moves the fence fully onto his property, about 5 feet into his property. Now there's a 40-foot gap in the fencing. I don't have the money to replace the 40-foot fence right away. A temporary 6-foot plastic mesh fence is installed to keep our dog in our yard. My right neighbor's fence has been falling down because they used recycled fence posts when they installed on my property line. I decide to find a second-hand fence, so all fencing matched. Takes me about a week to get the used fence, and another week to get it broke apart into useful pieces. Perfect timing because we're leaving out of town on vacation for a week and a break is needed. My brother-in-law comes to house sit and watch the dog. His second day of house sitting, the house gets broken into. Burglar broke the temporary mesh fence and used a rock to bust in the spare bedroom. Brother-in-law was home. Burglar ran right back out the monkey cock. Brother-in-law cock. Brother-in-law was home. Burglar ran right back out the back window. Everyone was okay and nothing stolen. Ideal for a break-in other than everyone being freaked out. Opinions on legal recourse for Tim potentially being partly liable, since the burglar was able to get in because of his moving the fence twice. Ideally never do combined projects with the neighbor. Doing the whole 60-foot of fencing would have cost me nothing compared to this hassle. If you must, get everything in writing. My only revenge has been painting the side of my fencing, facing his property neon colors pink, orange, blue. Because it's 20 foot from where they park in the driveway, and it's the direction on our one-way road that can't be seen when driving down. Please provide more suggestions. Well, I think there isn't going to be much legal recourse here. The time to do that would have been when you were having the problems with his fence on your property. A civil suit might have been the way to go there. The police should have done something. They chose not to. They likely could have. It was just a choice on their part not to. So I think what's really going to happen here is nothing. The fence is off your property. You're gonna get that replaced yourself anyway. At which point, no one's really out. You would have to prove negligence on his part, but again, it was on your property and now it isn't, so I don't really think you'd find a satisfactory legal solution. Of course, I'm not a lawyer. This isn't legal advice. This is just the opinion of one sort of knowledgeable Scotsman who's done a lot of these stories. Ultimately, what the courts would do is they would look at the situation, and if you'd been wronged and you were left in a deficit, they'd want to make you whole. I.e., if you'd lost money, they'd want to make sure you got your money back. If the fence was yours and on your property, they'd want to make sure that was restored. But this doesn't really seem to be the issue here. I think you just have to accept what's happened has happened. You were very lucky your brother-in-law was there. Obviously, having him house it did exactly what you needed to do. And just avoid talking to your silly neighbour from now on. I mean, for heaven's sake, carrying a gun while doing yard work, ridiculous. Okay, next up. Am I the neighbour from hell, or are they? Spoilers, it's them. This is by Independent Ice 7606. I've spent weeks trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. I drafted a letter but decided not to send it. But now I'm genuinely at tipping point. I need to know if I'm being the crazy one or if I'm justified in feeling this way. For context, I live in a 3-level building with balconies stacked right on top of each other. The balcony floors are wooden boards with small gaps in between them, so any liquid that falls on someone's balcony falls straight through to the one below. Efficient for rainfall. Years ago, we had a dog that peed on the balcony, leaking through. Our downstairs neighbour rightfully complained to management. I mean, they could have just spoken to you first, but whatever. And we were asked to take care of it. We fixed the problem, and we've been extra careful since. Strike one against your neighbour. They should have spoken to you first. The issue. Firstly, cigarette ash has fallen from their balcony onto ours multiple times. It's landed on our pillows, which is a literal fire risk. Just a few days ago, I found ash all over our tomato plant, which we're growing to eat. I added a light cover over the tomato cage, so it's fine for now. This isn't the first time one of our neighbours did this. My mother notified our previous neighbors that their cigarette ash was falling on our pillows, and they immediately corrected their behavior. This is probably the biggest issue, but it's not one that infuriates me the most. The second issue is that every time they water their plants, an immense amount of runoff just pours straight through the floorboards and onto us. The first time this happened, I thought a literal bucket of water fell on my head. I thought it must have been a silly accident. Then it kept happening on various points around the balcony, also hitting my cat. I think you can legally punch them in the face at that point. Again, I'm not a lawyer. Which hangs out all day on her cat tree around the balcony. Multiple times. I tried looking up the cracks, and it seems they don't have any dip trays or saucers under any of their plants. This has kept on happening for over weeks, but an incident just now has almost tipped me over the edge. I've been out in the balcony throughout these incidents working on my laptop. The water would drip right over my head, so I felt my laptop was safe given it's about 2 feet from where the water and plants are, and they have no plants in that area. I should also mention that every time they are out on the balcony I clearly shuffle around, and they must be able to hear me. Also, they can clearly see everything below them if they look down, so it's unlikely they don't know I'm there. This afternoon I heard them repeatedly closing and opening their balcony door. At one point, I thought it must be a child playing, but I'm 95% sure they have no children, and someone going in and out. Then I'm suddenly splashed with water over my arm and literally 3 inches away from my laptop. Some drops splashed onto the keyboard. I immediately closed my laptop and furiously gathered all my things quickly. In the process, I accidentally dropped my phone on the floor right where the water was pouring down. It's fine. I then rushed in and slammed the door. There's no way they didn't hear me gathering my things and slamming the door. My mother asked what happened and suggested I finally send that letter. You should definitely send the letter. I can recognize I might have let anger cloud my judgment, so I need to know whether I should even be sending this letter, and if I'm even justified in being this angry. You could maybe talk to them about it, see what happens. If that doesn't work, then... For more context, all around the complex, people utilize their balconies for various different purposes. Many have hammocks and sofas, some grills and dining tables, and all usually have plants like our own. One of our neighbors has their toddlers playing outside for hours every day while using tablets and various electronic toys. These balconies have screens and a waist-high wall around them. I need to be clear, I have plants and water them regularly. Sometimes I'll accidentally spill some water, and sometimes the drip trays and saucers overflow. I would completely understand and wouldn't even think to complain if this is what was happening. The issue is, this is now obviously not accidental, and at this point, they are 100% aware water is falling onto our balcony. So, would I be the neighbor from hell if I dropped off this letter? Are they the neighbors from hell? Should I instead send my apartment's management an email? Should I send anything at all? Am I overreacting? Here's the letter from my mother's POV, given she's interacted with them once before and is friendlier. I'm 20, by the way. Hi there, it's your next door neighbors and the apartment number. We just wanted to let you know some things have been falling from your balcony onto ours. Cigarette ash has fallen onto our balcony several times, including on our pillows, which could be a fire risk. Recently we found ash all over our tomato plant, which we're growing to eat. A couple of times, water, probably from plant watering, has dripped on my son, and once in our cat, while we were on the balcony, once nearly hitting his laptop. It seems there might not be drip trays or plant saucers under the plants, so water runs straight through the gaps into the wood. Yesterday, however, a separate pour of water landed directly on him while he was outside working, and nearly hit his laptop by a few inches. We also have plants ourselves, so we totally understand how easy it is to accidentally spill water, but this has been happening repeatedly, and in such large enough amounts that it's hard to imagine it wouldn't be noticeable from above. Years ago, our downstairs neighbors complained to management about water falling from our balcony. and we were asked to take care to prevent it. So, we know how important it is to be mindful of this. We figured it was worth mentioning since you probably hadn't realized, and we'd really appreciate you helping keep things from falling going forward. Thank you so much. As I said, I think it would be better, instead of sending the letter, just to talk to them in person. They might see the letter as being a little bit too much. I appreciate that it might be a little daunting, a little nerve-wracking to confront people about this problem, but as long as you're neighbourly about it, it shouldn't be a problem. But they might take the letter the wrong way. You can infer tone that might not be there from the written word. And if that doesn't work, then contact apartment management. That might be the next logical step. It's a good idea to write your thoughts down. The letter was a good idea in theory, but it could be misconstrued. Okay, next up is Downstairs Neighbour from Hell by The Newest Worry. Let me start off by saying I am in no way the perfect neighbour, but I mostly keep to myself unless walking my dogs, in which case I will stop and chat to a few of the neighbours I know. Last week, I was in a mild accident and the doctors think I tore ligaments in my leg and my foot, which is the cause for my pain and difficulty walking. I told my downstairs neighbour what the doctor said and also told her that I was given a walking boot and crutches that I should be using to keep the pressure off my ligaments. I also just recently got another dog and she has terrible separation anxiety. If I'm gone for longer than a couple of hours, she will cry. I've been trying to train her not to do that, but it is a slow process, especially with my hurt leg. Almost daily for the past week, my neighbour has texted me to complain about my dog, saying she is too loud and disturbing the peace. I told her I was sorry and that I was working on it and that my dog just needs a little time and compassion to get used to her new surroundings. Now last night was the straw that broke the camel's back, however. I've been laid up in bed and on the couch, not moving for most of the day because if I put any weight on my torn ligaments, it causes me excruciating pain. I've been using my crutches and my boot to get around. Last night I had gotten up a few times to use the restroom, around 10:30 p.m., 12 a.m., 2:15 a.m. I have never been able to go one full night without needing to get up to pee. Well, around 2:20, my partner was in the shower. They worked from 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. almost every single day. And I was just leaving the bathroom. We hear 3 very loud bangs coming from below us, like our downstairs neighbour had taken a broom or something and bashed the ceiling with it. I went and laid back down. Mind you, I was very slow because the boot and crutches make it hard to maneuver in. At 2:30 in the morning, my downstairs neighbour calls me just screaming that she can't take all the noise anymore. It's driving her insane and I have no decency, yada yada. I explained to her again that I was on crutches and I had a big clunky boot on my foot and that it was very difficult to move around. I said I was sorry and I just needed to pee. Well, she wasn't having any of it. She threatened me that she was going to start recording my nighttime activities, so she could show the office what kind of people they're renting to. I told her I have to listen to your loud TV playing directly into my room almost every single night, and I have never once complained about it. You need to start complaining about it. Then she said, I can't take this anymore, and hung up on me, albeit with more cursing. This morning I drafted an email to the apartment manager and sent it. It went something like this. Hi, I wanted to speak to you about a situation involving my downstairs neighbour. I recently injured my foot and was advised by urgent care to wear a medical walking boot at all times while awake, even during the night. I also use crutches to get around as part of my recovery. I need to get up occasionally to use the restroom and I always try to walk carefully and minimize any noise. Last night at around 2:30 a.m., my downstairs neighbour called me and began yelling and threatening to record my nighttime activities and report to the office. I had previously informed her of my injury and mobility needs, so the call felt aggressive and upsetting. I wanted to let you know what's going on just in case she does file a complaint. I'm doing my best to heal safely while I'm still being respectful to my neighbours. Now my question is, what should I do now? The neighbour seems dead sure that every little thing is my fault. I have tried reasoning with her. I tried explaining myself. I tried reassuring her that I'm working on things and no matter what I do, she just ends up ticked off. If she gets me kicked out of my apartment, then I will have nowhere to go. What you need to do is you need to start reporting her every time she makes noise. Threatening to record someone is sketchy as hell. I'm not sure the legality of it, but it's definitely sketchy. But if she's making noise, make those complaints. Report her to the office. If you're doing anything that's nothing above normal living noises, normal apartment living noises, and it doesn't sound like you are, you're not really in any danger of getting kicked out. I wouldn't be surprised if this person has complained about other people and you're just her current target. Don't apologize to her again. Do not ever apologize to her anytime she complains. Just say noted. I mean, in fact, you said she called you up. Right, if she's got your phone number, block that. There's no reason to be talking to them. Don't engage with them. Don't engage with crazy. And at the end of the day, just live your life as you're living your life and let her do whatever she's going to do, because she has even less of a leg to stand on right now than you do. Okay. Next up is Venting About Our Neighbours Because I Need To by Edvith05. So me and my girl have been living in this duplex for about 2 years now. It's basically 2 back houses and the other neighbours moved in about a year ago. When they first got here, they were super friendly. Always inviting us out to dinners, little kickbacks, bonfires, whatever. We used to vibe in the backyard and have chill convos all the time. Then out of nowhere, there was a full 180, especially from the guy. He always gave off red flags, though, like he never actually listened to anyone. Just talked about himself constantly. He would speak about the neighbours and talk poorly about them. Every time we'd bring something up, he'd somehow make it about him. Like one time at a Halloween party he invited us to, the hosts, his old landlords, had a really pretty home and garden. We were complimenting it and he cuts in like, yeah, I helped them with all that. That's why it looks so good. Like, seriously? Then he starts randomly talking about how he used to swim in their pool all the time. It just gave major narcissist energy. They're probably in their late 30s, early 40s. We're between 26 and 28. So it's already a different vibe. His girl, or wife, still not sure to be honest, has reached out to us before asking for help. Like, once we had to take her to the ER, another time she got locked out and asked for help getting back in. But she'll always be like, don't tell him, he'll get mad, or he gets jealous. Like, huh? What does that have to do with us? Eventually he just switched up, stopped saying hi, got super passive-aggressive, always looking irritated with everything we did. My girl kept greeting him out of respect, but I told her to stop giving energy to people who clearly don't deserve it. Amen. Anyway, this past week has been extra annoying. We all share a laundry room that connects to their place. The other night we had to do an emergency load around 8:30 because our dogs had an accident. Oh. Nothing crazy, just a quick wash. This man starts slamming doors, throwing stuff, being all dramatic. Then, the next day, our landlord sends a group message like, "Hey everyone, for consideration of all tenants, let's stop washing and drying by 9 p.m. No. You can keep washing and drying as long as you like, really. I mean, if there's a noise ordinance, then maybe don't do it after a certain time, but apart from that, whatever. Anyway. Like, okay, it's very obvious who sent that complaint. As a grown man, why don't you address us instead of reaching out to the landlord? Giving super childish behavior. We've also started a small business. And we always felt like this malicious envy towards us in anything we did, because any time we'd share anything with them, especially him, he'd find a way to belittle us or make us feel dumb. They also look at our business, social media, which I find extremely odd. So we always knew they'd talk about us and our journey in starting our business. Luckily, we're 2 months in, and doing so good, and guess what? They started a small business too. It's been a couple of things we've noticed. I fully support influencing others in starting their business, but the way these people are makes us feel like they speak badly about what we're doing, and wishing us bad but would 100% do the same thing. Then this afternoon was the cherry on top. My girl was cleaning the patio area, the fire pit we all share, even though we're literally the only ones who've used it in this past year. They had brought out some free patio chairs. He even said he found them, and told us we could use them any time. But their stray cats are always in them, and to be honest, we aren't trying to sit in chairs covered in cat fur. Side note, they never told the landlord they had cats, and our landlord specifically said no cats allowed. We have dogs, but we asked for permission. Plus, they built little homes for stray cats back there. And now there's fleas everywhere. So again, we weren't planning to use the fire pit anytime soon. My girl just cleaned it out to be nice. Later that night, before bed, she took our dogs out, and the chairs were gone. Like, okay. It didn't bother us, but it made us feel weird about the situation. We're both adults, and acting this way for what? So yeah, am I crazy for feeling like they've got low-key malicious energy towards us? Or would y'all feel the same? 'Cause I'm so over it. I think it's very obvious that these two, especially him, maybe less his wife or his partner, he's definitely jealous that you're younger than they are and you're doing quite well. At least when he's comparing his life to yours, he probably feels his life is lacking in something. And that really is sad on his part, but I'd just blank them and don't let it bother you. I wouldn't waste the emotional energy on it, quite frankly. Okay. And lastly, and this one is: Neighbours from hell are a bunch of drunk dudes and are friends with about 2 other houses nearby. They're creepy AF and I'm at my limit. This is by Bitch Fetish. We have lived here for nearly 2 years now. We didn't have much time to check the house out because of a lot of personal stuff that's a completely different story, and we're basically living paycheck to paycheck. Same. So we don't have the luxury of moving. Every day, I have to not kick myself for moving us here because of these a-holes. As I type this, it's 9 p.m. Wednesday, and they're blasting music, probably drunk like they are almost all of the time. I genuinely do not know how they're alive, and while I don't want to wish death on anyone, I wish the consequences of their actions would finally happen already. For context, the 3 or 4 drunk guys live in a house together, I think. They're always around each other, so I don't really know. That's not super close to us, but they have boats, trucks, cars, trash, tires, I don't know, probably drugs and a dead body as well. That's all parked right next to our driveway, which until recently, when I caved and bought a flimsy fence material with the money we didn't have any barrier. Which has contributed to a lot of the stress because these dudes and their friends have obviously never heard of common courtesy or boundaries before in their drunken lives. One of the guys they're friends with is some old dude with a beer gut so big that, again, I have zero clue how he's still alive. And he has maybe 3 or 4 dogs, all unleashed, and only one with a collar. He'll throw a tennis ball for them into our driveway so they'll run into our yard. I'm still finding tennis balls to this day in the rock garden. Might as well take up tennis at this point with all these free supplies. I found dog crap in our yard, and while I haven't caught his dogs doing it, it's difficult to imagine it's anyone else. Let's just hope it's the dog. Dude also likes to set fireworks off all the bloody time. He uses them on his dogs to rile them up. I don't get this at all. Is it to hurt them? It's like his dogs won't be doing anything, not even barking, and then, like clockwork, I'll hear them go ballistic, then the loud explosions of the firecracker he set off. Can I call animal control for this, if I gather evidence of it? I mean, it sounds like a form of animal abuse, but I'm not an expert on that. I also have PTSD, so while I get it's America and summer and July, fireworks so close to my house, like 20 or 30 feet away, and so frequent makes me incredibly hyper-vigilant. On July 4th, he and some friends came home from a show at like 10:30 and started lighting ones that I'm pretty sure are illegal in town because they sounded like goddamn dynamite. This went on until like 12:30 a.m. We had to be into work by 3 a.m. the next day because we work weekends, so I lost it and screamed at them outside to shut up. Obviously they didn't. They just told me to call the cops about it. As much as I wanted to, I kind of broke down in tears and couldn't really do anything else. Had to call into work because of it all. You probably should call the cops. They're telling you to do it because they don't believe you will do it, so call their bluff unless they're the kind of person that would retaliate. In which case, probably still call their bluff. Recently I was working in my yard and found one of their spent fireworks there, which could have easily hit our house or car and started a fire. I don't know if I could take any legal action if this were to happen, but I will at least be calling the cops next year if they do it again. It's not only screwing up my nervous system, it's incredibly dangerous to me, my partner, and our home. Back to the guys, who live next to the old guy. A lot of times they're outside, slamming doors, yelling at each other. I honestly suspect a DV situation, but I don't know how I would even call that in, blasting music, and revving engines at every godforsaken hour. Our living room and bedroom face our driveway, so getting sleep and relaxing are difficult at times. At one point I was on the couch when I heard a bunch of yelling at like 10 or 11 p.m. Snuck outside to film it just in case. "Get in the back, now!" and a truck door slam. I think he was talking to a kid, but it was dark and I was too worried and high to stay out there. Around the time we had moved in, long enough that they should have known we live here now, I went out to the living room to find one of the dudes just yelling into his phone while standing on my driveway, and his 1 or 2-year-old playing in our rock garden. I was PMSing and lost my head, so I couldn't stop myself from yelling at him through the window to get out of my driveway. Luckily he listened, but, as I've written above, they let their dogs run into our yard and their fireworks land in our yard, so they don't care about me confronting them to obey the boundary line between their yard and my driveway, which was why I got the fence. I've had to call the cops on them a few times for blasting music at night, and they also like to burn their trash and smoke, of which has blown toward our house and gotten in at times even with all windows closed. I didn't realize until recently we have an ordinance against burning trash, otherwise I would have caught on camera the time they set the fire to an entire couch. At one point I smelled smoke and checked to see if they were burning stuff again, but not only that, they had their 2-year-old out walking pretty close by the fire, and no one else really close by if something happened, so that was interesting. It was really only a few minutes before one of the guys came back out, so I don't even know if that CPS were there or not. I don't want to sound like a Karen. I wouldn't be filming or even care at all if they just have some damn decency. All our other neighbors are completely fine, keep to themselves, are chill, no yelling, slamming, fireworks. It's just these 4 guys and their friends and maybe 2 houses nearby. As a woman, I'm also pretty stressed just for my own safety. Doesn't help they're a bunch of Trump cultists either. Any advice is appreciated. I moved here for some peace from a red state, and also from what I went through there, and this is somehow a worse situation. Well, as you did mention, you have called the cops on them before, so I just do it every time there's a valid reason to do so. Don't hesitate, don't let them try and intimidate you into not doing it. It is your legal right to do so if they're being disruptive and discourteous neighbors. You've just moved fairly recently, so I'm not going to do the easy thing and advise you to move again, maybe to a blue state, but it might be worth considering later in the future down the line, because it sounds like they're dug in like ticks and probably aren't going anywhere. But for now, continually documenting and reporting, it's likely your best option. And that brings us to the end of today's video. A big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And before you go, if you could please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Let me think, what else? Oh yes, if you would like to support the channel, I have a Patreon page, because I'm a YouTuber and all YouTubers do. That's an exaggeration, but I'm always surprised when I find one that doesn't. There's a link in the description to that. You'll get early access to the videos on Monday, if you'd like to support there for $1 or more a month, at which whatever you're comfortable supporting with. There is also a link to my merchandise store on Teespring. Okay, now before we go, we're going to take a look at the question of the day and the answer of the day from a previous video. And today's question is: Do you have anything in your home that you were planning on throwing out, and one day you suddenly discovered a use for it? You can just see, peeking out the corner there, this used to be in my living room. I replaced it with those nice kind of box ones where you got the shelves on it. I really like those, which I'll be buying more of for the house eventually. But I replaced it years ago with those, and those light up my living room wonderfully. Nice mellow light, and I've got color changing Wi-Fi bulbs in there, so I'm very happy with those. But I thought, well, I don't like that. I really don't like it. It was something my mother purchased many years ago when she was the tenant of this house, and she was quite fond of it. So there it stood, and I had replacement bulbs I'd purchased for it over the years because that's what I had at the time until I could replace it. And then I replaced it, and it just kind of went in the junk room, which I'm whittling my way through. I'll have to get stuck into that a bit more this week, I think. Get a couple of bags in the bin before it gets picked up. And then I realized, well, I'm planning on doing videos now. So I've got my ring light over there, which is a very cheap one, but it does work. But lighting, this is very basic and rudimentary, the lighting I've got going on here. I'm looking to get like a proper lighting set at some point. But we make do with what we have until we can do the fancy stuff. So I used that cheap ring light I had. I've got the ceiling light on as well. And then I remembered I had that. So I dusted it off, and oh, it was dusty. Dusted it off, wiped it down, and the bulbs were actually all still working, which was surprising to me. And it's working fine. It's quite warm. It's right next to me. I can feel the warmth of it with all these lights on me. But it's doing a decent job of at least making sure that this part of me is reasonably well lit and that you can see me in the video. So is there anything you were expecting to throw out, then suddenly you discovered, oh, new life for this? Another story, actually. I've got a lamp in my bedroom, and it had this kind of old shade on it. It was all kind of torn and everything, so that had to get thrown away. But I discovered years back now, I was up in the loft, or attic to my American friends. I was up there, and I was looking for something else, or I was putting something away for storage, and I discovered this old lampshade, a very retro 1970s one, and I really liked the look of it. So I brought that down, and when I realised that lamp needs a shade replacing, it went on that, giving that a new lease on life. So let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, we'll take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. I would decide to start filming videos during the time, in summertime when it's all warm and clammy. I'm going to go cool off after this, and I'll film another one. Okay, let's see. This is not in Neighbours. So... oh yes, I remember this was this one's from Naughty Neighbours 51. The question, I think, was supplied by Newcomb via the Discord server, and it was, how do you feel about getting rid of the penny? Today's answer comes from Annie Northman. Hi Annie. I don't know. I'm a bit indifferent about it. Mostly everything is card accessible nowadays, but sometimes cash is used for payments. And I have memorized one of my debit cards because the numbers are a bit faded. And yeah, I've memorized my debit card number as well. I make a point of doing it just so I don't have to grab my wallet every time. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourself.